our visitors to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Tinley Park Zoning Board of Appeals Commission. We're going to start off with the pledge to the flag. If we could all stand, remove any hats or anything. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Madam Secretary, would you like to call the roll?
Paschek,
Here.
Vargas,
Here.
Fritz, Bettenhausen,
Here.
Shuck,
Here.
Sepasi.
Yes, here. Okay, thank you for that. We have meetings, or we have many meetings, yeah, we do. We have minutes of the last regularly scheduled meeting that are on your screens, or were on your screens, to be approved, so I will let y'all look at those and entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Motion. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the last regularly scheduled meeting. All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, those are taken care of. We have 3 hearings on the docket tonight, and we have notice of hearings provided for us so that these were made public to the Chicago Tribune Media Group. I have all 3 in my hand. If anybody wishes to peruse them or look at them, they are up here on the desk and they can be looked at. We're going to go ahead and open the first public hearing. Do we read this first? I don't remember. Do we read the petition first and then open the hearing, or we open the hearing first?
You can open it.
Yeah, you just open the public hearing.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make a motion, we open the first public hearing, which is the hearing regarding the trellis at 18311 Cottonwood Drive. I need a motion to open.
Motion.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
The hearing is open. So, without further ado, without further ado, the petitioners, Robert and Cosette Trella, are seeking variations from the zoning ordinance related to the location of a 100-foot, that is in 10 by 10, storage shed at their property located at 18311 Cottonwood Drive. The variations would permit the petitioner to install a 100-square-foot storage shed to encroach 3 feet into the required 5-foot setback from a property line yard in a public utility and drainage easement within 10 feet of the principal structure. So that is the petition at hand. Is anyone here that's going to speak on behalf of that? Sir, would you mind standing, please, and be sworn? Okay, right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
You can sit down.
Dan?
You
Oh,
can
okay.
go over it first.
All right.
Dan?
Yep.
You're up.
Yeah, so this is a variance for, the goals for the petitioner is to install a 100-square-foot storage shed on their property, again, located at 18311 Cottonwood Drive. There's 3 variances attached to this, in order to install the shed where the petitioner is proposing to. The subject site is on the southeast corner of Cottonwood Drive and Peachtree Drive. This lot meets the zoning requirements for the size of a corner lot in the zoning district it's in. It is unique that there's a number, basically all 4 sides of the property have utility and drainage easements on it. That happens in this subdivision, it's common, but it's not common village-wide, but just due to some of the stormwater, as well as there's a pipeline out there that has caused some unique ways that they had to get around with drainage. So it is unique that kind of all 4 sides have existing stormwater and drainage easements on it, and you'll see that a little later when I bring up the plat of survey. There is a stormwater easement on the south side of the property, or a stormwater inlet on the south side of the property, and a line that runs up until that inlet. The rear yard's enclosed by a 6-foot-high open design PVC fence. It's about, it's less than 50, or more than 50% open, I should say. And the picture coming up of kind of the backyard. There's also a practice putting green that's located in the back of the yard that takes up a large amount of the backyard space that's out there that the petitioner installed on the yard, so. Here's a picture of just kind of the front facade of the house. To the right of this is where they're looking to install that shed, so behind the front setback of the house, but kind of right by where that fence comes in on the right side. And then here's a picture of where they're proposing to install that shed, as well as kind of what that existing fence looks like. They're looking to install the shed near this walkway because of a disability they have. They want to be able to kind of have easy access to it, and they're looking at using the existing walkway as a method to make it a little easier to get to the shed. If the home's zoned R2, kind of all the surrounding properties are zoned R2 as well, and then they're in the same subdivision, the Timbers Point subdivision. So all single-family homes surrounding the property. So again, 100 square foot shed, 10 by 10 storage shed. This will be between the south property line and the home. They're proposing to keep it about 2 feet off that property line and off the fence from the neighbor, and then have a small walkway that connects to the existing walkway that runs along the home there. Next, they're proposing to use fiber cement siding, which is a pretty durable, high-quality material, especially for a shed, that they're proposing to use just to keep it kind of aesthetically in with the residential appearance of the neighborhood, as well as a shingled roof. This is an example of a shed that was built at the petitioner's previous home. It'll be similar to this in size and appearance, minus they'll use the fiber cement siding and not what's on this, which I believe is wood or vinyl. So it'll have a different siding, but otherwise this is an example of when they built at their previous home. Also, it's about, I think they said 20 to 25 years old. So this one's got a little bit more age. We'll build a new one, so it'll look a little nicer, a little more durable material on the outside. In order to put this where they want, there's kind of 3 variation requests. Like I said, they have to do. One is that it's located in an easement. So basically no accessory structures are permitted to be in public utility or drainage easements. Standard practice has been if you can kind of get sign-offs from all the utilities, and then if our village engineer goes and looks out, especially with drainage easements, that can cause drainage issues with neighboring properties, that basically if you get all those sign-offs, will allow you to put it in there. They typically don't go through a variance process just for that request if they can get all those sign-offs. A lot of times the utility companies will give them, and the village will give them, if there's no major infrastructure, so if there's not a major pipeline or a major water line, if it's not directly under it, and then also kind of with the agreement that if it's damaged, it needs to be moved, that would then be the property owner's responsibility to pay for it and not the utility companies. So basically them choosing to put it in the utility easement means the responsibility is then on them to, if it gets damaged or they need to move it. The village engineer did look at this, so he went out there, especially again with the drainage easement. We always have him take a look to make sure if you're proposing something in that easement, you're not shifting stormwater onto your neighbor's property. It's not going to cause ponding or pooling. He didn't really have a concern with where this was going. It's kind of at a peak where they're installing it. It's not going to get in the way of any stormwater drainage flow. They did note, and even the petitioner kind of pointed out, that their neighbor has a current kind of ponding issue, and it's more due to just the yard settling over the years. So this won't make that any worse or any better for that matter, but there is a little bit of ponding on their neighbor's property right now. But that could be fixed just by kind of filling it in and regrading it to the right level. There is a little bit of slope on the side yard. as you can kind of see from the image, it does slope a little bit to the south. So that with the shed that's going in there in this easement, there is gonna be a little bit of, it won't be as tall to call it a retaining wall, but it'll be a ledge or a slight, you'll see a little bit of a wall on the back side of this. So it'll look a little taller if you were looking at it from the south than you would from the north, since it needs to be built up a little bit there to kind of level it out, to be level with that walkway. So the second variance is from the property line. So there's a 5-foot requirement for any accessory structure from the property line. That's typically for just to make sure it's far enough away from the property line so that way it doesn't impede a neighbor's property, it doesn't get in their way, it doesn't cast shadows and kind of enclose their yard, that you don't have a tall structure really close to a property line. It's also for maintenance issues with the accessory structures themselves, to make sure that you as a property owner can maintain your structure without requiring going onto somebody else's property. So 5 feet kind of gives you that ability to put a ladder in there or do whatever you need to do to, if you're gonna take it down or paint it, gives you ability to maintain it, as well as enough room to kind of maintain between the structure and the property line. So you can get a lawnmower back there, you could plant some plants and maintain them if you wanted to. So that's typically why 5 feet, and then every code's a little bit random, so 5 feet's just kind of a round common number that's used out there. So that's for all accessory structures. They're looking to reduce that to 2 feet, so it's a 3-foot variation on that. The third variance is for the distance from the home. So typically or the code requirement is for 10 feet for an accessory structure from the principal structure of the home. So that's primarily for fire safety requirements, that in a shed or a garage or in an accessory structure, it's kind of unsupervised storage of combustible materials. So if there's a fire or something, they want it to be separated far enough that it won't spread to the home, or at least won't spread to it quickly. The other part's just kind of visual impacts. If you're doing large structures or large accessory structures close to the home, it essentially is can function as an addition to the home. So a lot of times you can get closer than 10 feet, but then you basically have to meet the same setback requirements as you would for a principal structure. So if you get closer than 10 feet, then you have to meet kind of all those same setbacks, the same size requirements, just because it basically is functioning as an appendage to the principal structure then. There are some, so if you do get closer than 10 feet, there are some additional kind of fire requirements that they do have that require you to kind of drywall or add additional insulation and things like that on the inside that create a better fire separation between the structure and then the accessory and the principal structures. So there is a couple options with these in terms of other locations where the shed could go. There are a few locations out there that would meet the code requirements, or with an adjustment to the shed dimensions could meet the requirements, or at least closer meet the requirements. So not too far from their proposed location is a location that's still next to an existing walkway where the shed could go. It is a little closer to they have some windows and a garage door that's there, that they're trying not to kind of impede the views, and place it really close to that. So their location has been preferred where they proposed it, but they could put the 10 by 10 shed in here without any variances. It wouldn't be in the easement, wouldn't be in the would meet the setbacks from the property line, and the fire requirement wouldn't require a variance if they meet the fire separation requirement. So they could put that in there basically today without a variance. The other option we kind of proposed is that if they changed the dimensions, they could at least meet the side yard setback, which is kind of from a variant zoning code perspective is the more concerning one, that we'd still like to keep things 5 feet away from the property lines if we can, for all those reasons I mentioned earlier. So we did also propose that they could, change it to a 7x10 shed or a 7x15 shed or something like that to keep the same square footage, but then it wouldn't get as close to the property line. So we proposed that. They said if they had to do it, they could, but that wasn't really their preference. It's not really a standard kind of dimension for a shed, and it may not have the same kind of visual appearance that they prefer. But those are two options that they have that would either meet the code or better meet the code. I think that's it for our staff report, so I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Sir, would you like to, do you have anything you want to say about this?
I mean, he presented it pretty well. I mean, one of the option, the other size option that you gave is essentially up against their living room windows, where they can look out. So I don't know, opposed to that. I don't know how else to say it, but that wouldn't be the desired location of where they want to put the shed. I guess the retaining wall that is gonna be a short wall of where those pavers are, or the shed's gonna sit on those pavers. I mean, there's already rock there, and the neighbors weren't opposed to that at all, as per discussions that they've had with them. And as for like the fire rating stuff, like no issues with that at all. If that's what needs to be done. The Hardy fiber cement siding is fire rated too, so I don't know if there's any consideration to that on the exterior versus drywall on the inside for a double fire rating, but I don't really know how that works. So
Yeah, I had talked to your dad about it,
Yep.
the petitioner, and they before they'd be able to know, they would need to see the actual specs of the fiber cement
Sure.
siding, because there's different, you can buy different fire ratings, there's different quality.
Yeah.
So it can be kind of substituted, but
Yeah.
to what degree matters. On
yeah, I
what the-
believe the brand name Hardy,
Yeah.
James Hardy stuff is fire rated, Class A fire rating, so I think that would qualify.
Yeah,
And
so-
like another thing about that area of where he wants to put that shed is that there's access from that single panel door that's the back of the third bay of the garage, which is, flip one more, you can see it better. That door on the left-hand side of the picture would be the access out of the third bay of the garage, and that's easy access for him. He is handicapped. He does have a straight leg he can never bend, so it's difficult for him to walk. So straight surfaces are preferred. Hills, difficult. So,
I didn't catch your name.
Ryan Trella.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you the owner
Owner of Trella Roofing?
of this property?
No, it's my father's.
It's your father?
Yes. He's on vacation now. So it was told to him that the other meeting would be a couple months or a month from now or something along those lines, so I took the bullet.
You're the builder then? You-
Correct. We own a roofing and siding company that's been
Okay.
licensed in the village since I was born. I was born here in '79, so.
That brings up a question, as
Yep.
long as you're in the roofing business. I understand this, the whole siding thing,
Mhm.
and I think you're right, I think the Hardy's Class A are certified.
Correct.
What about the roof?
All asphalt shingles, or at least the ones we would be using to match what's on the house, would be Class A fire rated also. I mean, the only thing that would be concern to me would be the overhang soffit and fascia would be an aluminum product covering wood, so I don't know what the fire rating for that is.
Yeah, I don't, a lot of that can be figured out at the building permit. So
Okay.
not to dismiss it or anything, but from a,
Yeah.
it'll need to meet the building and fire code.
Sure.
And that's just kind of what we said, we can leave it up to the building commissioner and
if-
what they submit.
Right,
There might be areas where they need to add something on the inside,
sure,
but we can figure that out kind of with the building permit side
Right.
of it. So, not to dismiss the fire stuff, but that's not
So,
really under what
It
the
seems
review
that
is.
pretty much, I know there's a couple options in it, but the village doesn't have any serious deadly concerns about this shed.
Not from a utility or drainage aspect, the village engineer was fine with the
And
proposed
fire
location.
thinks that it can be. it can
Yeah,
be
our building and
worked
fire
out.
code said that they'll look at what they're submitting for the exterior required, and that may substitute, but there's always, they could always drywall
Yeah,
they
it'd be-
require the drywall on the inside, and that always suffices, so it can be done one way or another.
And then
they
the shed
can get
becomes a
work.
man cave and we're all set. Okay, and PD obviously had nothing.
What's that?
The police had, obviously had nothing. Okay, does anybody else have any questions for
Yeah, so-
either Dan or Ryan?
One variance is rejected because of the size, the 7-foot width, and the other variance because it blocks the view from the window.
Which window are you talking about? The home, this home?
yeah,
Neighbor.
so, like, if the other proposed location, I think you said that the one that wouldn't cause any variance issues would be essentially right there in that green spot, that window to the left of the downspout that has the grids in it, in between the half moon and the downspout, is directly looking out their, living room.
Now, the neighbor's house, the back of the neighbor's house faces that whole side yard, correct?
Correct, with a pool in between that's probably got,
So when I was looking at it, for
Mhm.
another third alternative, I was putting it on the northeast corner, but there's no sidewalking or path.
And actually, so on the north, yeah, so the northeast and then the southeast corners were actually, I think, two where the village engineer didn't really like
Yeah.
it actually affects the drainage more at those two
yeah,
locations.
there's quite a bit of slope from the house that would be to the east. The house that is to the east is quite a bit higher than the house in question. It all slopes to basically the west and then the south. There used to be a pool there on that property. They purchased the pool. The pool was knocked down even before they got there, so it was like a sand patch, and there's a putting green now. So on the other side of that pool, that dirt spot now, so I don't know where you guys are looking, but that would be to the north of the current putting green. That is quite a bit higher than the rest of the property, and it all actually slopes to the drain tile, which I believe is that would be the southeast corner, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, and
That's why
yeah,
I
so he just didn't, not that you couldn't make it work, but in terms of him wanting to see this in a location that'll never cause any issues or doesn't have to be finely engineered or graded.
Yeah.
Neither that southeast corner and the northeast corner weren't preferred, the location it's at,
Yeah.
or anywhere on that south corner.
Yeah, that
was kind of
southeast
their
corner,
preferred.
aesthetically speaking, you'd have to be probably a retaining wall at that southeast corner of the property, probably almost 4 to 5 feet in the air.
And that might adversely affect the
Yeah,
drainage,
and there's
too,
two
Yeah,
pools
and
there.
the drainage is the
Yeah.
main thing we were looking at. And anywhere on that southwest corner, it's basically that fence line is kind of a peak to the drainage, so anything on one
Yeah.
side of it's going out to the street. So there's no real stormwater coming at this that'll affect it. It'll all be coming off the roof and go in the right direction, so. That was kind of his preference, actually, is where they put it, so.
I have a question. Do you
Go
want-
ahead.
On the 2-foot variance instead of a 5-foot variance behind the shed,
Mhm.
up against the fence,
Mhm.
with your father being handicapped, who's gonna maintain back there? How's he gonna maintain the 2 feet if there's weeds or whatever back there? Who's going to be able to get back there then?
The landscapers probably that he employs now, or not employs now, but hires now.
So then the 2 feet would be enough space for them to get back there? if
Yeah,
it
and it's
was-
all, it currently, the fence line is rock now, as you can see kind of where that trash can is, so they would finish that in the same manner. But if there would be any weeds or anything like that, that would
They'd
be
be able to get back there?
addressed always.
Yeah, I mean, 2 feet's still not all, 5 feet's the preference, because you can really get, you could have lawn landscaping, get a mower, but can you make it work with 2 feet? Yeah.
I- I
Feet's
think-
doable, yeah.
Yeah, I could get back there.
If it was less than, for a while, they were thinking about 1, and I basically said that you gotta at least have 2, because I can't fit in a 1 foot space, so, they went with 2.
Okay, anybody else got anything for Mr. Trout? Okay, thank you. You can have a seat if you wish. Anybody got anything else for Dan?
Well, I followed up on your proposed sites, and I was kind of more of an agreement with the 7 by 15, but actually letting that encroach 2 more feet and make it 9 by 11 or 12. So it's only an encroachment of 2 feet, not all 5 feet.
The 7 foot one wouldn't it would
Doesn't
fully
encroach
meet
at all.
that 5 foot setback, but it would, yeah, it would still be in the easement slightly, but not as much. And then it would still be the same setback from the house. So it makes it better, but still some there.
Okay.
But we
anything
just wanted to
else?
give you guys those options in case you want to look at some alternatives.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and close the hearing so we can move to discussion phase?
Move to close.
Move to close, second, anybody?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of closing the hearing for discussion phase, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Okay, let's have everyone's thoughts.
The concerns that I have is as long as engineers have gone through there and have given their opinion and said that this isn't gonna be an issue with utilities and everything, that was one thing I was looking at. I was also over there today and looking at where this was gonna be in regards to the fence and the neighbors behind them. If the neighbors to the south of them don't have a problem with it and the engineers are okay with it, then, my concerns are kind of taken care of at this point.
I think the fact that I think this location, as much as it does ask for an easement or variance, I think the fact that it's at the highest point, and this land is all kind of up and down, it's kind of like a golf course, actually. So you've got to run your drainage in the right directions, and if this is going to run to the street or to that southeast corner where the tile is, why, it seems to make a lot of sense to me.
And we are assured that the materials will be fire preventive.
Yeah, they'll have to submit them as part of the building
Yeah,
permit,
that's-
and that's when we'll verify that. But we have verified that it can meet those. We just gotta figure out exactly what that is. But we'll figure it out when they get the drawings, the construction drawings in.
I would just wanna make sure too that the building is aesthetically pleasing because of its location near the street and near the neighbor's backyard.
And I think we mentioned that too, and before we mentioned that, I didn't know it was gonna be hardy board, which I think is a good material for them to choose. That's pretty high quality. Most people don't make sheds with hardy board on them. Most people don't do their homes in hardy board, so, I think that's good, and then having the shingled roof too, I think does do that. So I think that's why they chose those.
Anybody else? Dan, is there a motion on
Let me run through the standards real quick.
Sure, go right ahead. If you've got it.
So the first standard is that if the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it's located, the property can yield a reasonable return without the approval. A shed could still be located on the property, and the property doesn't have to have a shed. However, a storage shed is permitted on the property, and the other possible locations are either more visible or have a greater negative impact on the stormwater drainage. Alternative options that comply with the code will limit the usefulness and attractiveness on the property. The second condition is that the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The property is unique in that there's a large number of encumbrance of public stormwater and utility easements throughout the property, and that limits the locations where the shed could be permitted. Additionally, there are existing site conditions such as a walkway, a putting green, and some grading concerns that limit where the owner can place the shed. The third standard for a variation is that if granted, it won't alter the essential character of the locality. So basically, the shed blends in with the surrounding area as it uses high-quality materials and looks like it kind of belongs in that location. The high-quality materials help it blend in with the surrounding neighborhood as well. So then there's some other kind of additional standards you guys can use as well.
Okay. Anybody got a question or comment on the standards? Okay, then we'll call for a motion to be made. Who wants to do that?
I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the following variations from the zoning ordinance to the petitioners Robert and Cosette Trella to permit a 100-square-foot shed to encroach 3 foot into the required 5-foot setback from a property line yard in public utility and drainage easement and within 10 feet of the principal structure at 18311 Cottonwood Drive in the R2 Single Family Residential Zoning District, consistent with the list of submitted plans as attached herein, and adopt findings of fact as proposed by the village staff and as may be amended by the zoning board of appeals at this meeting, subject to the following conditions. 1, a variation from section 3F required setbacks of the zoning ordinance to permit an accessory structure to be placed within the public drainage and utility easement. 2, a 3-foot variation from section 3I 1E accessory structures and uses of the zoning ordinance to permit an accessory structure to be located 2 feet from the property line where required 5-foot minimum setback is required. 3, a 4.4-foot variation from section 3.1.1D accessory structures and uses of the zoning ordinance to permit an accessory structure to be located 5.6 feet from the principal structure where a required 10-foot minimum setback is required, or the accessory structure must meet the principal structure setbacks. With the following conditions, the shed must be constructed of fiber cement board siding and have a shingled roof. The shed shall be constructed on brick pavers.
Okay, is there anything anybody wants to add to the conditions for this? Okay? It's been moved, has it been seconded? Can we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded by Kelly. Madam Secretary?
Vargas,
Yes.
Bettenhausen,
Aye.
Schock,
Yes.
Piaschek,
Yes.
Chairman Sepasi.
Aye. Okay. Martin, your motion is carried, and it is carried unanimously, which means when it goes before the village board, it will be a read and vote situation. You'll only have to sit through one meeting to get the final approvals. And once you get that, then you go into the permit process. And that, Dan, do you know when that meeting's gonna be?
August 6th. is
Okay, so
the-
August 6th will be the meeting where your information is presented, discussed, and voted on. So if you want to be there, if they're back from vacation and not on the putting green, why? You can have them come out, or you can come out and see them. But for now, you've gotten past this step, and you're on to the next one.
And then the permit process begins.
If you wanted to submit a permit before that, you can for us to review but it's kind of up to you if you want to pay to get the plans done. But we will review it, we just can't release it until the board approves the ordinance. I'll follow up with your dad via email and let him know the dates and stuff.
Great. That'd be the 7 on the 6th,
Correct. Yep, Same place,
same place.
different people.
same place, different people?
Do we return your sign?
Yes, and I'll send you you didn't bring it with tonight?
I did not.
Okay, yeah, I'll just send them the check then. You can just bring it back into the building department.
Okay, great, then put the check in the mail.
I will. It'll
Okay.
be in the mail.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
have a nice
Good night.
evening, sir.
You too.
Okay, we're gonna go on to item number 2, and this is another public hearing for Burtners at 9349, am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, at 9349 178th Street. This is a corner fence variation. I need a motion to open the hearing.
Move.
Second.
Okay, it's been motion second to open the hearing. I'll read this one. The petitioner, Michael Burtner, owner, is seeking a 25-foot variation from section 3J fence regulations of the zoning ordinance to permit a 6-foot high open design fence to extend 25 feet into the required secondary front yard where a fence encroachment is not permitted at 9349 178th Street in the R3 PD Single Family Residential Timbers Edge Planned Unit Development Zoning District. That sound right, everybody? Okay, who is going to be speaking on your behalf, sir? Okay, could you stand please and be sworn? Thank you. Your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the information or the testimony you're about to give for this, in this hearing, will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We're
Okay.
gonna have a motion made to open the hearing.
I'm sorry.
We still need to have a motion to open the hearing.
I
We
thought we
did.
did
We
that.
just did that, yep, we're good.
We did.
Oh, and you seconded it?
Me and
Oh,
him.
I missed
You-
it.
You sneezed.
Sorry.
You sneezed, or you blinked. So we're up to you.
Man, I was trying to push it off for a little bit. So yeah, the property in question here is on the southeast corner of 178th Street and 94th Avenue. The lot doesn't meet the minimum zoning lot requirements for width, which is typically 95 feet for this, for the underlying zoning district here, or the total size in the zoning district. The PUD kind of permits both interior and exterior lots to be reduced by 10 feet. So it's kind of in between, it basically created a zoning district in between two other zoning districts, just through the PUD requirements, but it does add an extra 10 feet on the corner lots still from interior lots. So the corner lots still have some additional width. The lot's 10,625 square feet, Timbers Edge subdivision. Again, the PUD approved for those kind of reduced widths, and still has that additional side width there. The west and east of this property the west, north, and east of this property are also zoned B3, or R3. To the north and east are in the same PUD, and then to the west is in just a traditionally zoned R3 subdivision. To the south of this is R5, which is the Amber Meadows Townhomes, and then kind of to the northwest of this, it stands out pretty well, is the Century Plaza, which is a commercial shopping plaza right there that has, I believe, a convenience store and then a CNB bank are the closest there along 94th Avenue. Okay, that didn't turn out the same way. So kind of as a background, what I do for most corner fence properties, or corner fence variations, is just kind of give the background. January 2018, there was some changes to the code. There was a lot of time invested, both with the ZBA, the Plan Commission, the Community Development Department, to kind of take a new look at the code because it wasn't being interpreted the same. There was a lot of miscommunication in terms of what the intent of the code was, so they kind of rewrote it to make it clearer for staff, residents, and then also kind of help, relook at the vision of how you want corner lots to look. They're difficult with corner fences because there's so many kind of unique situations that come out of them. I've worked in multiple towns, everyone in the planning department has, and you'd think by now there'd be one kind of common way that planners would come up that solve all these issues, but there's not. So it's kind of just up to the community and what they kind of want to see. Fences do have a strong kind of visual aesthetic impact on a community, though. They can stick out in a good way or a bad way. They can be divisive, or they can kind of blend into their surroundings. So this is just kind of an example of a couple different situations. If you look at the screen of different lot setups, some of them you can have two backyards together and no driveways. Sometimes you can have the corner side yard of one property is actually the front, adjacent to a true front yard of another property. You have other times where that corner side yard backs up to backyards, which we've had a couple times come up for variances, as you're basically continuing a rear fence line. So these are always kind of difficult, and you gotta look at each kind of situation in its own bubble to see how it works out, how it fits into that surrounding area. There's also the part or the concern of just setting precedent in general with corner fences, as people tend to look across at their neighbors and go, I want the same thing, even if they don't have the same setup or the same situation. It kind of sets some precedent or some examples of what other people want. So, and again, they can stick out. Sometimes they can blend in. It just kind of depends on the certain situation. So, 2018, the end result with these was that basically the fences needed to be set back to the required front yard setback line. They allowed it up to a 10-foot encroachment into the secondary front yard, but it had to, at the time it was 4 foot in open design. We just recently bumped that up to 5 feet to kind of help, at least with the height issue that some people have, as well as with pools was a big reason. So you can encroach up to 10 feet there, but it's gotta be an open design fence, and then it can't be any higher than 5 feet. So that was kind of added as, if it meets certain conditions, we'll let you encroach into that a little bit, but not wanting them to kind of come all the way out into that secondary front yard. So the petitioner's variation request is for a 6-foot high privacy fence in their backyard that would come out the full 25 feet into the secondary front yard along 94th Avenue. There's also an existing landscape area that exists out there that kind of gets in the way wherever you're putting the fence at. So that's relayed somewhat into their decision about where to put the fence. On the screen is their proposal, and then their survey, which again shows the fence along 94th Avenue, which is on the left-hand side, comes out 1 foot from the sidewalk, that full 25 feet out there. And then it extends up to the north. They're encompassing, I believe, HVAC equipment and the AC unit behind the fence, but it goes a little more than halfway up towards the front of the house. So typically with a lot of these, you kind of want to see them, and maybe at the back of the house, where it's a little, at least from the front view, it's a little less obtrusive from the front of the house. This is the image. So the orange line is the petitioner's proposed 6-foot fence. Also on there is the blue line is where you'd be permitted a 6-foot privacy fence by right. And then the purple line is kind of where you can extend a 5-foot open design fence out. So up until that point, so you wouldn't have to run it through that landscaping. You could pull it in a foot or two if you wanted to, but it's allowed up till that point. And here is a picture, again, to the south are townhomes that also don't have a fence, so it functions as the secondary front yard of those townhomes as well. There's some doors and just kind of some landscaping out there, so it's kind of open along this. So on the right's the townhomes, on the left is the subject property. They're a little closer together. The backyards aren't that big. There's also not many fences running along there. It's kind of open. There's some landscaping and some hedging kind of between the townhomes and the single-family homes, but there's not quite as many fences. They would be able to run a fence along that and a 6-foot privacy, so that they do have a right to run a fence back there, but the main concern is the bump out into the secondary front yard. So the kind of the alternatives they have include basically putting the fence set back to the home, where they by right could do a 6-foot privacy fence, doing the open design 5-foot fence, either where it's permitted, or if they're going to request maybe an extended height, maybe not having it go all the way to the sidewalk. The preference is usually not for these to go all the way up to a sidewalk, because as they age, as they kind of shift, they can get closer to the sidewalk. It's usually not kind of aesthetically pleasing to walk right next to a fence the entire way. To the north of this, there are fences kind of in the subdivision, but they're backyards. But on this block with the townhomes and the petitioner's home, there's not any fences there currently. There are a few properties in the area that have corner fences. The property directly to the west on the other side, or on the other side of 94th from the petitioner, has a variance for a fence to come out. They back up to the shopping center parking lot, though, so it was a pretty unique situation. I think that was approved in 1992. And again, backed up to a parking lot that they wanted to obviously fully screen. So they got permission for the fence to extend out to that point as well as to put in a pool in that area, since it functioned as their backyard. So just to note on this as well is that this area that will be fenced in, if they're requesting this and it was approved, it would be allowed to be fenced, but it would still be a secondary front yard, so you still wouldn't be able to do a pool or a shed, an accessory structure in that location. So if they wanted that, they'd have to come back for another variance to look at those separately. With almost any variance, we always look at, if it's necessary, reduce it to the greatest extent possible from the setback as well as the height, as well as the kind of transparency that we like to see. If they're gonna stick out a little bit further than normal fences, we kind of want them to be a little more open. So, that's it for the staff report.
Okay, I have a question right off the bat, Dan. The variation request here shows a 6-foot total privacy fence. The
Correct.
actual motion or the actual thing that we read first shows it being a 6-foot open concept fence.
Yeah, that was a mistake. So the proposal is 6-foot privacy.
Okay, 6-foot total privacy, that's what I was afraid.
So I think that's just a copying here.
Okay, anybody got any questions for Dan?
Dan, can you go back one slide where the lot lines from the townhomes and the lot lines for the single family? What's that space between?
Common area property, so
For the
in like a
townhome?
townhome, you have a bigger common
Okay.
area and then the smaller townhome ones in it, so that
So that's the
it
common
looks
area
like
of the
there's
town.
nothing there, but that's common
They
area.
maintain that and all that.
Correct,
Okay.
yes, I think they have a landscaping company that does a lot of it, so
Perfect.
it actually looks pretty nice out there with
Very nice.
including the petitioner's kind of landscape area. It's all, looks pretty open and nice on that corner.
Okay, no more questions for Dan at the moment?
I do have a question. When I was out there today, there's a small, like a hill that kind of goes down. Is that on the townhome side or is that on their side? It's like a little, kind of a little,
Oh, the berm.
yeah, it kind of goes down.
I don't remember now.
Go back to your last picture, maybe.
If you go back to the picture that shows
That
both,
one, yeah.
So it looks like it's maybe on the town.
It looks like the majority of it's on the townhome side.
It is, okay.
Yeah,
Looks like a total
if
burn.
you look
from
at
that.
it, it's pretty flat by the time it gets to there.
They do have the easement on, like on the back of their property, they do have a drainage and utility easement back there on 10 feet of the petitioner's property. So it may slant a little bit, but I think more of the drop happens on the townhome side. But they do have a back easement back there with stormwater and utilities, 10 feet.
okay. Sir? Sir, would you like to come up and present what you have for us? If you could, for the record, just state your name and home address.
Michael E. Bertner Jr., and you said address? 9349 178th Street, Tinley Park.
Okay.
I'd like to open up and a little information about me. Me and my wife Nicole and our 4 kids moved to 9349 on 178th Street on May 24th, 2019. We have 4 children, Jacob and Lucas, twin boys 4, Alyssa 5, Audrey 7, and we have a 2-year-old Burmese mountain dog. I grew up in Tinley Park off 167th and Oketo. I went to Bannis, and then we moved a couple blocks away into Bremertown, so then I went to Helen Keller, Grissom, and graduated into Andrew in 1995. I'm 42 years old. I've lived in Tinley Park all but 6 years of that. My parents still live in Bremertown, as do my sister, her husband, and my nieces. So we are all lifelong residents of Tinley Park. I do have some packets that I printed out from so those are, I also have the letters from all my neighbors are in there stating that they are okay with the fence and the fence line going to the property line because it matches 94th Avenue all the way straight down. Every house on 94th Avenue from 178th to, here's the last resident. I wasn't at work, so wasn't able to get a copy yet. So this is the last resident you guys sent a letter to about it. So from 178th Street, heading north on 94th Avenue, all the way down to Sutton, which is 0.3 of a mile of a stretch on 94th Avenue, is all 6-foot high, flat line privacy fence to the sidewalk on 94th Avenue. And on Pheasant Drive and 94th Avenue on the east side of 94th is also 6-foot privacy, flat topped, all the way down to Windsor Parkway, which is also 0.3 of a mile. And then once you both hit Sutton and Windsor Parkway, that's where townhouses begin. So then like the fence line kind of stops. I also have pictures of 94th Avenue from my house going straight down, showing the fence line going all the way down. We are requesting this variance just to keep, it's for the safety of, my kids, obviously, my wife and my dog, because I work 3rd shift. So the reason why I'm requesting something a little bit different, where it goes a little bit deeper in on the house, is we have 3 basement windows. On the one picture that Dan had up there, you can see them. And then we have a big bay window, which the AC unit sits directly, it's like right underneath it. And I work 3rd shift, so I work 11 p.m. to 7:30 a.m., so I'm not at home at night. So this is, for ease of mind and safety concerns, being off the busy street and whatnot. Also with the fence that we're doing, or would like to do and get approved, would keep the fence line continuing down 94th Avenue. So we think it would look easy on the eyes and keep up with the rest of the neighborhood on 94th Avenue going down. We would like the 6-foot privacy fence just for traffic reasons too, and safety, to block off 94th Avenue, but also the convenience store is there. It's mostly a liquor store, and it is pretty busy on some days during the week, and especially on weekends. So it's a little uncomfortable sometimes when people are hooting and hollering at your wife on the weekend, and you gotta explain to your kids why, So we're not doing it to block out neighbors. On the other side of the house, we're going with a 4-foot picket style, so we can actually, talk to our neighbors. So we're not blocking anybody out or trying to do anything of that. It's for safety reasons, and also we think if we don't get the variance, our house will also stand out in a bad way, because we will be the oddball fenced yard, and coming either way down 94th Avenue, it's just gonna stick out, which could, diminish home values, being that only house without the fence line going straight down 94th Avenue. I do have pictures. But those are actual pictures from 94th Avenue, looking straight down. Our fence would be installed by Cedar Rustic, who is a reputable fence company. The fence will be stained and maintained. As soon as it dries out, within 30 days, it will be stained completely inside and out. We will never be asking for a variance for a pool, because we enjoy going to the Tinley Park pool where we have a family pass. And we also already have a shed in the other back corner of our lot. So those are something that will never be a concern in the future. And the little slope that you're seeing, that is all on the townhouses, and it's backyard of the townhouse is kind of level, and then it kind of slopes down like this. It's just kind of like that, and that's all, with their property and maintained by their landscaping crew that they have.
What's the speed limit on 94th Avenue?
40 miles per hour.
40. I should know that.
Bumps are extra.
And just behind the townhomes is a funeral home on 179th and 84th Avenue. And then you have Moraine Valley South Campus. And then where you can see it, it's almost like pretty much where this photo was taken would be like the parking lot of the actual liquor store, because the liquor store is on the corner. And then the PNC Bank is, on the opposite end of the corner of that lot. And then you have the strip mall.
There's no utility boxes within the space you're requesting.
There's behind the shed, so we're gonna box those out, so those will be on the outside of the fence.
Okay. And you mentioned that you have no plans for a pool or another shed.
No, the shed is where it is, and if it ever had to be cut, it'd go back in the same spot. Cause our yard and, the way it is, we would never get a pool. We like the Tinley Park pool, as you can tell by my one son who's passed out, they were there today. And that's where we like to go for our water fun.
Well, no, if you do box the utility boxes out, if they're on your side of the property line, you have to put a gate, even if the neighboring property is open at this time. Just if they add a fence there, then it would box the utility boxes out. So if it's on your side of the property line, you either gotta do a removal.
Yeah, well, we're gonna go around it, so it'd actually be in the open, so you could get it from the townhouses. And/or I'm gonna put a gate in the back, so I can maintain that side of the fence. Cause even,
So you'd have to do that, because just, even though it's open now, they could theoretically run a fence on their side of the line, and then it would
Yeah.
box that out.
Yeah, so then
at
we
that
would do,
point. So if it's on your property, it's.
yeah, we would do
your-
the removable section, probably right in front of the box.
Sure.
But we would have a gate in the back, so I can maintain, cause, grass and weeds will grow underneath, so I have to get back there and, weed whack and stain the fence, keep it.
I have a question. So the only part you're looking for the 6-foot privacy fence is running along running along 94th Avenue?
It'd be 94th Avenue and the townhouse,
So you're gonna
so
put
the
6 foot-
backyard. Yeah, so it's just gonna be kinda like a L, yeah.
Okay,
So
but then next to
94th.
your neighbors, it's a smaller fence.
Yeah, so it'll be a 6-foot, and the first part of it will be a 6-foot, and then it down dips to a 5, which will be on the side of the shed, and then it kind of goes, and then goes down to a 4, and then it'll be a 4 all the way to the front of the house, where it ends, and then to the gate where it matches up to the side of the house. So that'll all be 4 foot.
Do the neighbors have a 4-foot fence to the south? I'm seeing 2 green lines.
No, there's no fences
No fence.
on that house.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
The fence between yours and the neighbors, where's that going to end on 178th Street? At
Do
the
you
front of your
have,
house, the middle of your house, end of the house?
it'd be about the middle of the house on the side with the neighbor.
Okay,
Be kind of like the normal spot. You know, we have a side entry door that goes into the house. It's not for the garage, it's actually into the house. So the fence would end, I think it's like a foot or two right in front of that, just so that's, you know, gated also at night.
Okay, any further questions? No? Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Have a seat, we'll continue. Dan, do you want to, your second part, your standards?
Yeah, I'll go through the standards if you want me to. Most of these standards are towards the negative side of this, and we're unable to meet some of them. So if you guys do determine you want to approve this, or if you negotiate some kind of changes or something, these will just have to be adjusted, so. So the first one for the property in question can't yield a reasonable return if used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district. But as usual, the subject parcel can still yield a reasonable return under the conditions in which the district is located. It's a corner lot, and the code applies to basically all corner lots equally. The fence can be code compliance with some minimal changes to landscaping, and can be placed in their yard meeting the code. So there's no physical constraints stopping that. And regardless of where the fence is located, the property will yield a reasonable return. The second variance or standard is that the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. So the subject property isn't unique, it's a corner lot, which is what the code is subject to. It's platted with some additional lot width to accommodate for the corner front yard setback. And then the proposed fence encroaches into the secondary front yard of the adjacent townhomes that don't have a fence as well. It would likely come ask for the same variance if they ever put up a fence. The third one is that if granted, it won't alter the essential character of the locality, so the variation would alter the essential character of the locality, specifically on this block where there's no other fences. Most other fences in this neighborhood and corner lots have fences that comply with the corner yard setbacks. There are a few that have variances that have either backed up to shopping centers or back up to a line of backyards, similar to just north of this along 94th. It's a row of basically backyard fences, and there's some variances there. The existing lot, similar to a lot of other corner lots in the neighborhood in terms of being a corner lot that doesn't have a that doesn't back up to a row of backyard fences. So the granting of a variance could set a precedence attached, a variance for similar situations to this one. That's it for the standards.
Any questions for Dan? Any questions for anybody? Okay, so we need a motion to close the hearing so we can go into discussion.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been motion and seconded to close the hearing portion so we can discuss the variation in hand. All in favor, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, hearing is closed. Now we can talk about this a little bit.
think initially I had a question about the 5-foot fence versus a 6-foot fence. I also had a question about the open design versus the privacy. I think it was explained adequately, though, when he talked about the concern for the family, for the residents of the household, and for the property itself.
Okay. I see letters here from people saying that they're all in favor of this and stuff, but none of the addresses correlate to the home. One is across the street, a couple others are on the next block, and a few of them are in Orland Park. So I'm wondering about what your actual neighbors behind you are saying about this whole thing.
Well, the one from Orland Park is actually my neighbor to the right of me. Her mother is handicapped and in her late 80s, and she is the actual head of estate. But that is the daughter. That's why she wrote her phone number on there, so you guys could give her a call, because she has nurses coming to her house. So that's why I spoke with the daughter, because I talked to the son who lives there with the mom, but the daughter is the one who is the head of state or whatnot. So that's why she came over and went over everything and all that. And then the townhouse directly behind me is Sandra and Marianne and Barbara, who's also in about her 80s, and her husband just passed away a couple of weeks ago, so now her daughter lives there. We talked to them. They said that it didn't come on their property line. Her son is a lawyer, I guess, so she said that she talked to them, and he said it has nothing to do with your property line, so just stay out of their business. Don't write a letter. Don't say that it has nothing to do with us. And that was yesterday when we spoke to the daughter and mother again. That is what they told us, because it doesn't go anywhere near to, their house. So the letters I have are from everybody who received a letter from the Village of Tinley Park in the mail.
Okay, anybody have any other questions? I'm inclined to see the necessity for a fence along 94th Avenue because of the speed of the street, because of all the situations that are across the street in there. But I'm not sure it has to be right up to the sidewalk, as Dan said. And in my neighborhood, they used to put fences right up next to the sidewalk, and pretty soon the fence is encroaching on the sidewalk, or the growth outside the fence is covering the sidewalk. And that is a personal issue for me, because I'm a walker, and I walk there. A lot of times you gotta walk out on 183rd Street because you can't use the sidewalk and the grass is wet. So I have an issue with it being right on the sidewalk line. And I'm not so sure that this couldn't be a semi-private fence rather than a totally private fence. So, I mean, that's where I'm sitting on this right at the moment. Does anybody else have any comments or anything regarding?
Are you saying that if it was a semi-private fence, you'd be okay with it going to the sidewalk line?
No, I truthfully, experience tells me I don't like anything right by the sidewalk line. It's gotta be a couple feet back so it can be maintained. If you go down 183rd Street west of Ridgeland, it's the same kind of situation, relatively busy street, and you've got a sidewalk there, but the sidewalk 3/4 of the year is useless because of the growth, because the fence is right on the sidewalk.
We're
And
talking
that's-
a foot in though, right?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, there's 1 foot between the property line.
It might
and
be
the
1
sidewalk.
foot in, but I mean, it's the
It-
growth
it
and
seems
stuff.
pretty
And the
close.
fence has got the lean going now, so that the bottom of the fence might be a foot in, but the top of the fence is on the line.
And I'll kind of note from a historical standpoint, at least since I've been here, I don't think there's been any approved all the way out to the sidewalk. So the ZBA's approved ones that have, I think 15 out was kind of the farthest. So in this type of situation, the only time it's been approved all the way out to the sidewalk is, again, if this was a row of backyard fences, this kind of stuck in line with. We had that at the last meeting. And the last variance that came through it's just meeting that row of fences and going. So that's been the only time it's really been allowed to go up to the property line. So this one is kind of usually it's 10 feet out, but they want a privacy fence or the 15-foot one out was a 5-foot open design fence. So this is kind of above and beyond anything that, at least since I've been here, I looked back on, has been approved. So that's kind of why we're looking at, can it be pushed in a little bit from the sidewalk? Could it be open design? And sometimes you can, if you want a little bit more privacy, landscaping's sometimes the way to go. It still keeps it a softer, open design fence, and then you can put landscaping on the inside of it or the outside of it.
Absolutely.
And if it was the backyard though, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The backyards all but to 94th Avenue are all stockade privacy fences.
Correct, yes. So if this was designed where a backyard was there, you could, and that's what goes on the north of this, is it's all backyards there. So those are permitted to go up to the fence line. It's just these situations where you have a secondary front yard. And if this, to the south of this was nothing but backyards, we'd probably be more supportive like we were for the last one. The concern here is that even though that's not a single-family home to the south of it, it's still a townhome. It still has a secondary front yard along that line. So,
I'm inclined to see the necessity for a fence along 94th Avenue. 94th Avenue, I say the speed limit's 40, and I can just imagine what they do coming out of there. I mean, kids coming out of Moraine Valley, people out of liquor store, I can imagine it. And I could, you know, I'm even into the 6-foot thing, but I just think a semi-private would be a little less obtrusive than the total private. Does anybody else think about that? I mean,
Yeah, I'm
What's
in
on our
favor of
minds?
the private because of the 4 girls.
I guess to discount that, because I get the concerns with families. Dogs are a common one as well, and we really do get personal circumstances kind of, you got to think about that. But in terms of the standards of a variance, that basically personal circumstances can't go into those. It has to be something physical with the physical property. Personal circumstances can change. You can, over time, and you have different owners that'll live in this property. So the variation runs with the property and not with the current owners. So when you do a variance, we get those personal circumstances. And with privacy being a concern, we'd recommend, maybe doing a 6-foot privacy fence, basically where it's permitted. Or if they wanted to, maybe come out 10 feet with the privacy fence and not 25 feet.
But we go back to the one we did on 88th and Brown a few months ago. Remember that one?
Yeah.
In Radcliffe?
Mm-hmm.
And they built a privacy fence to match all the ones on the whole side, the whole east side of 88th Avenue, which are
Correct.
open design, and they put up a 6-foot privacy.
Correct, that matched all of the backyard fences going through there. So
No,
that,
There was privacy, the other ones were open design, 50% opaque.
yeah, I think they agreed to do open design.
They didn't do it.
Okay, well, and all of the ones down 88th Avenue can become privacy.
They
So-
could be, but they're not, and that's what I'm saying. So when we're trying to balance,
Yeah, the open design's more for if it's a corner lot like this and it's sticking out, that, once it kind of follows a fence line, at least from a staff perspective, it's kind of blending in, whether it's privacy or open design. It's not the one fence that's gonna be sticking out. So that's kind of where we've looked at those a little differently. If it's following a
it follows the line,
backyard
but it
fence.
does stick out, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You went from open face to privacy, and it just sticks out by
And-
5 foot to 6 foot.
Yeah, so those are, but that's the only situation where we've approved them
But there's nothing
at
to
all
tie it
to
in
the
here.
fence line, is if they follow a row of backyard fences.
There's nothing here to tie it into and never will be. Those townhomes aren't going anywhere.
Correct, yeah, which is why it's gonna, so those townhomes will probably never put a fence there. So this fence will be the only one on that side of the block sticking out. So if it was a row of homes back there, it kind of tied into, it looks like it belongs, where this one could stick out a little bit more. So,
But that makes it much more unique in my opinion.
The house to
two houses down from Rosemary's, which is the one next to me, their yard is fenced. And the townhouses are behind their house, and then the neighbor behind them, because they all have pools.
So you're saying down,
East.
Yeah, well, because he was talking about the backyard fence line. So that's why I wanted to, say that out there, yeah.
correct, yeah, all those could, anything to the east, even if your neighbor doesn't now, they could put up a fence
Right.
along that
And then
back
my
fence
fence
line.
lines would match, the four corner houses going straight down 94. There would be no like, variation. I'm not on their block, I'm right across the street on the last house. So it's a very unique, like, spot and house with, corner store, liquor store, and everything. So it's a very unique situation. I mean, if I was in the middle of the neighborhood, I wouldn't even be here for this meeting, Because my job as the dad, keep these guys safe and doing what I think looks best for the neighborhood. I grew up in, because all my friends lived in Timber's Edge, actually in high school, used to hang out Potawatomi Park. And that's, the fence line looking straight down, you can make the turn, it's just easy on the eyes, it's all straight flush. I can guarantee you guys, I'm sure you hear this all the time, my fence will be maintained. If you look at the house now, it's spotless, we keep it that way, landscaping. I just, give you my word that the fence will be stained, maintained, it will not be leaning, the grass will be cut, any excess will be landscaped. That's why I brought up the gate on the back of the fence, so I could get the spot, because even though some of it, grass is gonna grow out on the side. So even though like it's on the back side of the fence, I'm still gonna have to get back there to weed whack it, because, grass doesn't grow straight up. So it's gonna come out, so I'm gonna have to do that just because that's me. It's a nice house, nice subdivision, I grew up here, I wanna represent it well. So I'm not, I would just say I would have no concerns about any kind of cosmetic or overgrowth. I was actually cutting the other side of the sidewalk for the first month and a half I lived there because the village wasn't cutting it and I thought it was mine. And I actually bought fertilizer, did it and all that. And then one day the crew was out there cutting, they're like, oh, like we cut that, but you always cut it before we get here. So now I let you guys re-maintain it. But at first I thought that was, also part of my property, the other side of the sidewalk.
Dan, I could understand when you said the variance belongs to the property, not the current owner. But I would think that any future owner, because of the volume of traffic on 94th Avenue and the neighboring businesses, would like a 6-foot privacy fence too.
I have a question on the townhouses. If he puts up a 6-foot privacy fence, the townhouses can come to us as well and also request that to continue that line, correct?
Yeah, they'd have to ask for a variance if they wanted to. It actually would possibly go to plan commission, because townhomes and multifamily property is, even fences, I think, are site plan approvals on them.
Okay.
Because it can change it, and it, you wouldn't just be doing it in that one location, it'd kind of change a whole property, and those are looked at like more like a commercial property, so. But yes, they'd have to go through some process to put a fence out there.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no other questions, if anyone do you have a motion in the, screen yet? Okay.
So I guess if you guys are gonna vote for it though, I recommend at least clarifying in terms of the standards, what you want those to say in the ordinance, since these don't necessarily support it. So if you guys are gonna be voting in support of it, giving a little bit of a summary of how you'd want those to change. And it could be, I heard speed and traffic, yes?
Say again?
I said I heard speed and traffic being,
Oh, yeah,
a concern.
the
The
idea
speed
that
and traffic along
94th Avenue, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
So if there's anything else that would help meet those standards.
Well, I think to meet the standards, we'd have to look at the speed of traffic, we'd have to look at the businesses and the populace around it. I've seen people come roaring out of that bank lot after being in the drive-up. Maybe they had a little bad time in there or something and came out of there. Moraine Valley, that's a nightmare when they come out of there. So, I mean, those are considerations, Dan, they're strong considerations. So, having said that, who wants to tackle a motion?
Can you put the motion up, Dan?
Yeah, it's up there.
Oh. I'd like to make a motion to recommend the village board grant a 25-foot variation to the petitioner, Michael Bertner Jr., from Section 3J fence regulations of the zoning ordinance to permit a 6-foot-high privacy fence to extend 25 feet into the required secondary front yard where a fence encroachment is not permitted at 9349 178th Street in the R3 PD Single Family Residential Timber Edge PUD zoning attached herein, and adopt findings of fact as proposed by village staff, and as may be amended by the zoning board of the appeals at this meeting.
Going back to the sidewalk thing, how far from the sidewalk is this fence proposed to be?
Typically, it's 1 foot between the property line and the sidewalk, so that's standard. It looks like that's what this is.
Does that have to appear in here?
No,
No.
no,
It's
they're
already
not, you're basically
in there.
not allowed to put the fence in that 1 foot. 'cause
Okay,
it's-
and where do you want us
public
to
right of way.
cite the standards with the speed and the traffic and that? Where do you want that in?
I just need a little bit of a summary, I guess, for when speed, traffic, anything else, any
Speed,
other reason.
traffic, and the commercial property adjacent is
Yeah.
concerning me. And the R5 immediately behind it concerns me. It's a higher density, and it's just, single family should be getting some privacy. And that's what I'm saying, this is a very unique lot in the village, located by those commercial sites that we used to build on the corners of all the subdivisions. That's why Lawn Funeral Home is where it is. And you're looking at that, and I'm just saying, that it's with the commercial, and with that townhome there, it's not an apartment building, it's not a 12-flat apartment, I get it. But it still is a higher density, more traffic coming through there. But they don't exit onto 94th, they exit on 179th. That exit on 94th isn't an exit.
Correct, yeah, that's a closed-off exit on 94th. It's just a fire exit, that's like Grasscrete, so it looks like it on an aerial, but yeah,
It's not an open
Correct.
ingress egress, right?
correct.
I was told the fire department can get through anything they need to get through.
Yeah, those trucks
And they
will
will.
run over the planters pretty quickly.
Pretty much
so,
what I heard.
Yeah.
So, you want this to cite
I think-
the necessity to protect the family from high traffic flow and increased traffic from the businesses and school and stuff at hand, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah,
Family or
Oh, good.
property?
Well, both,
property is a
actually.
better, yeah,
Right, but because when we're doing this, it's supposed to be for the property, not
property,
so
yeah.
much for the family that's in there right now, so it would have to state for the
So
property.
it could
not for
say
the
property, I don't
family.
see that being a problem, yeah.
Just for logistics on the,
Because this is more than just a commercial corner on 94th and 179th. That goes all the way to LaGrange and the high school and the college across the street. And that's all going to be developed behind the college at some point of commercial stuff. So you're looking at a very unique little busy situation here that,
It is unique.
plus you have more stuff coming on LaGrange back there too, behind the Pheasant area.
I got it, but yeah, it relates to the property, not necessarily the specific
Yeah, no, that's true.
I don't
The
know that he has a
specific-
dog.
person. Yeah.
And he has a dog that will bark, I know, because I rescue dogs. All right, so we have the motion, and you have sufficient backup for it there then? Okay, so we're looking for a second for the motion.
second.
Okay, seconded by Jen.
Do we want to make any requirement that the back fence abutting the townhomes is an opaqueness, is an open design?
If you wanted to attach that to part of this variance, you could. It it's typically would be permitted to, like, their neighbor could do a 6-foot solid fence there, though. They could legally, as of right now, they'd be able to do a 6-foot open design fence, so I would almost recommend against it because it's gonna get missed at some
Don't
point in the
complicate.
future, because it's typically allowed, unless there's some reason it's specifically attached to why you're allowing it in the secondary front yard. I would recommend against
Okay.
it, but it's up to you guys. So.
Okay.
I think it's good the way it is. We've got a motion and second. Should we vote? Bev?
Bettenhausen,
Aye.
Shuck,
Yes.
Vargas,
Yes.
Piaschek,
Yes.
Chairman Suppasi.
Yes. Okay, so your variance is passed. It's only passed us, though. Still has to go to the village board, because, again, this was a unanimous decision by this panel. It'll go to the village board on
August 6th.
August 6th. You can appear there. They will read, discuss, and vote on this all in the same meeting. So that you shouldn't have a terrific amount of time. You're looking about three and a half weeks away. That'll be on a Tuesday night, and it'll be at 7 PM.
Correct.
So,
Yeah,
it's
you
a
don't-
good
you don't-
idea always to appear there in case they have questions.
Yeah,
Should
we
we
highly,
answer them?
we would say, go there in case there's some additional questions. They don't normally have them, you don't need to do a presentation, but just in case there's additional questions, and then just to hear the final result. I recommend someone be there.
Other than that, thank you for coming.
Do you want your photos back?
I'm gonna keep one set for the record. I'm
Yeah,
gonna give
we
you
have
back
to,
to you.
we'll need one set.
Yeah, I'll keep one set for the record.
You can bring your sign back and I'll mail you your check
I don't wanna do it, just collect them.
to the
As well?
department, yeah.
Thank you,
Neil,
Dan.
do you need one of these for your? you have
She
those?
didn't bring you a cold one.
I know.
Dan, for the permit, could I go ahead and apply for that?
Getting jittery.
All right, we have one more. This one's near and dear to my heart, it's about motorcycles.
Yeah, but it's on LaGrange Road.
Actually, it's on LaGrange Road, it's not far from this guy's
It's
house.
not far from that, right?
Think about it.
That's the other thing we should have added, I just thought of it. That corner of 179th and 94th is traffic control, left turn lanes and stuff. That's a big intersection.
Well, yeah, but I think we've protected it. I think we've protected the property.
Well, by doing what we did, yeah.
Well, but again, because it's, talking about the variances, it's not who's in the property, it's the property itself.
Right.
Protecting the property doesn't protect the family, so you have to state that.
We're protecting the property from the additional noise and the beer bottles being thrown and all that. Have you guys ever been up that way? That Tokyo Steakhouse is one of the best in the world.
Is it really?
It is excellent.
I've never
Okay,
been
we
there.
ready to go on? We are going to go to hearing number 3. Except I lost it. Nope, there it is.
You can start.
All right. Hearing number 3 is going to be a public hearing about, or regarding Harley-Davidson at 17801 South LaGrange Road, electronic message center sign variation. So I'll entertain a motion to open the hearing.
Motion.
Second.
It's worried for a minute there. All in favor of the motion, all in favor of opening the hearing, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All in favor, or all opposed? Okay. All right. In this one, the petitioner, George Tragos, on behalf of Chi-Town Harley-Davidson, is requesting a 24.1 square foot variation from section 9J.4 sign regulations for electronic message center of the zoning ordinance to permit an electronic message center to be 40.14% of the total allowable sign face area of a freestanding sign, where the maximum is 20% of the property located at 17801 South LaGrange Road in the B3 PD General Business and Commercial Chi-Town Harley-Davidson PUD zoning district. Now, sir, are you here to represent Harley-Davidson?
I am.
Would you please stand and be sworn?
My pleasure.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear that the information you're about to give during this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. All right, we will repeat that the notices were made to the media, and so that's all been done and taken care of. So, it's on you, Dan.
So this is for approval of electronic message center, freestanding sign at the Chi-Town Harley Davidson, that's on LaGrange Road and 179th. This is for a percentage, an LED message center as a percentage of the total sign surface area. The property is a 4.1 acre parcel, again, on near 179th and LaGrange, right by the shopping, so kind of right where we were for the last one, about a block away. So, the property has around a 30,100 square foot building that was approved in 2000 for Chi-Town Harley Davidson. The originally they didn't propose a ground sign on this property, not liking that there was a 10-foot height limit in the minutes. That was kind of expressed as why they didn't propose one, and they were going to be reliant on the wall signs. But now they've proposed a ground sign, and they'd like to have a electronic message center in that sign. There is a 50-foot wide front yard setback along the LaGrange Road, which is a little bit unique. Just at that time, due to the kind of unknowns with the LaGrange Road widening and the amount of I think it was under construction for like 10 years. So they didn't know exactly where that line was going to be, as well as where the sidewalks and paths would be along that location. So there's a little bit of additional width there for the front yard. There is a second lot on this property that is not currently subdivided out, so it's part of the same lot right now with the Harley Davidson building, but there is a kind of second lot that you can see east of the building. Part of that's a detention pond over there too, but there is a buildable pad basically there on that side of the property that's not subdivided, that would need a PUD amendment and a subdivision if that was going to be developed in the future. I guess, so for that second property, the one thing that we have that we want to look at is if that property was subdivided and developed by a second tenant, we'd like to think about the signage and how it relates to this sign. If it was subdivided, how they had it kind of planned out originally. They would have some frontage by the entrance, however, there are also there's quite a few utilities running through that over there. And we're not quite sure if it would fit in there or not. Also, if they kept it as one lot and put a second building there, which is possible, it'd have to be one owner, but, and they had Harley Davidson Cafe or something over there that they wanted to advertise, how would that relate to the current sign? So we do have that as an open item, just as there's a second buildable lot there. How's this thinking through kind of how the signage works with that property? The zoning of this property is B3 PD. It's specifically a planned unit development for Chi-Town Harley Davidson. To the south of this, again, is the plaza, and it's zoned B3 PD. There's also an Arby's and a Dunkin' Donuts in that area as well. To the west of this is the Cook County Forest Preserve Orland grassland that's unincorporated, or may be incorporated in Orland, I'm not sure, but not in the village, and owned by the Cook County Forest Preserve. To the east is R3, it's single-family residential there. So with the development of that other parcel, that obviously would be a little more of a concern. For this request that they're making, it is being, the sign will basically be placed behind the building, where the building will be in between the sign and those single-family homes there, so that it won't be visible to them. To the north of this is a vacant site that's zoned B3. The zoning map shows it as a planned unit development, which it's it's not based on the annexation agreement. They had the right to make it a PUD, but it's currently just zoned B3. For the zoning code, so the code was changed and amended in 2017. There was kind of just like the fence permit, there was kind of a big sign code update that looked at the aesthetics and how they tied into the community and what we wanted to see, just like fences. The signs are a big part of the aesthetics when you drive down a road. So how do those appear? How do we want our community to look? Our commercial districts are the most visible parts of the town that people see, so wanting to set some standards in terms of what those look, in terms of quality, appearance. One of the changes they did make was to the electronic message center sizes. There was some comments at that time that they didn't really like when the majority of a sign is an electronic message center. So they reduced it at that time. It was 50% of the sign was allowed to be an electronic message center, and now it's been moved to 20%. Yeah, 20% of the total sign area can be an electronic message center. So the intent of that, again, was to kind of make it be incorporated more into a sign and make more of the sign be a sign rather than an electronic message center. Have some kind of permanent logos and identification for the businesses in the building, and then kind of build it into a larger sign. So allowing it then to have a base and a frame and a little bit more substantial design to it. This requirement was varied one time since it's been put in place, and that's actually right down the street from here too. So that was the CMB Bank, which was varied in March 2018, which they were converting an existing sign that had existing posts that they were trying to match that exceeded that 20%. The variation request, here's the proposed ground sign that the petitioners proposed. It's 119.8 square feet total in surface area. That doesn't include the base, which isn't, but it does include the sides of it, as well as the kind of architectural and aesthetic elements, just not the base. There's a 48 square foot LED message center proposed kind of in the center of it. And the code requirement would only permit, for that size of a total sign, would only permit a 23.9 square foot message center in the sign. The petitioner is requesting the variance because there's some concerns about the readability of the message center. If they complied with the code, if it was only 23 square feet, how would that be readable along LaGrange Road specifically? There's a 70-foot setback from the building to the actual roadway. LaGrange Road is about 120 square feet, or 120 feet wide. Total, it's 7 lanes wide, and then there's a pretty large median. It doesn't have trees, but it is kind of elevated and built up. That reduces some visibility to the sign. And then there's pretty high travel speeds there. But I think the speed limit's 45, but no one does 45 on that portion of LaGrange. So pretty high travel speeds as well to see the signage. So the petitioner has some concerns based on that, on the readability of what they'd have on this. Additionally, there's auto dealerships are usually located in the B5 zoning districts, which the majority of that's along 159th. There are some additional sign allowances in that district for height that compares to the other neighboring communities in terms of height for signs, size of signs. So we basically came to an agreement with Orland Park and Orland Hills way back in the day that we'd all kind of have the same sign allowances there. So that way, they didn't keep getting bigger and taller. But they do exceed what almost all of our other commercial districts allow for. So this one is unique that it's a motorcycle dealership, but it's still an automobile. It's still an auto dealership that's outside of that typical district. So the size wouldn't actually be allowed to be any different. The percentage of the LED doesn't change, but they would have more visibility and more height to the sign. The variation request, they worked on the design as well. Just the overall size and the height of the sign will comply with the zoning code requirements. So it's just the LED message center percentage. So they're meeting the 10-foot height requirement as well as the size. They included a masonry base and a masonry frame that kind of encapsulates the LED message center. The logo on the top, we also think is an important design element, having that actually be the prominent thing that you see on the sign, and then seeing the message center, not having the LED message center above the sign. Also not being visible from the residential, so the proposed locations behind the building, an electronic message center can be bright. So the location kind of works there where it won't be visible from any of the residential to the east. The sign, the percentage is changing, but it'll still have all the other regulations that our code requires for electronic message centers that are applied to every single one. So there's brightness levels that change for day and night, so that way it's not overly bright or distracting. There's minimum static time, so full motion isn't permitted. We require that there's 8 seconds in between changes to the message, and that all message changes are kind of instant. And then having an electronic message center also limits your ability to have temporary signs. So since you're able to advertise specials, deals, whatever you're doing, it limits prohibits the ability to have banners and flags and those types of things. So there are some advantages to allowing it. Electronic message centers can stand out, but we also get the advantage of not having temporary signs, which when you get a lot of them and they've been out there, they detract as well. So a little bit of a balance there that someone won't have an electronic message center and the temporary signs at the same time. This is the proposed layout. There's currently a bump out of landscaping out there. The specific location hasn't been determined quite yet. It'll meet the setbacks on the code, but there's quite a bit of utilities out there, and I figured out where most of them are, but there's somehow I can't. We know there's a sanitary sewer out there, but it's not ours, and we can't get anyone to mark it. So depending on exactly where that's at will depend on where the location of the sign is. The sign can't be over any utilities, and we typically want to see it 5 foot back from any utility. I believe the gas was the closest to it, and if that's the closest one to where the sign's gonna be, they'd be able to put it kind of right where the landscape bump out is right now along that side. They may have to do some changes to the landscaping and landscape around the sign. So if it comes out a little bit beyond where that landscaping is right now, they would have to kind of continue the landscaping around the sign. So there'd have to be a minimum of 2 feet in width of landscaping surrounding it, and at the base of it. The one kind of aspect that we do have that you guys can waive as part of this request and it's an architectural compatibility guideline that we have, that typically we require signs to have the same materials as the building that they're attached to. So typically for this building, it's got red brick and tan brick. It's a good looking building, a lot of glass on it too to kind of highlight it. But typically if this came in and they were just getting a permit, it would require them to have brick that matches that building. So they've proposed a dark kind of stone, manufactured stone to go around the base of this sign. They've kind of stated they didn't really want to carry the red brick around on the sign. We've recommended if they do want to use something like stone, maybe doing something that ties into the building a little bit, if they're amenable to that. If they could do something maybe with a red tone or a brown tone in it that'll tie to the building and still look modern, but maybe not quite as dark. And some of that is signs are reusable, but we hope Chi-Town Harley's here for a long time and we don't want to see them go. They've been a great part of the community, but if they do change, maybe they upgrade and get bigger, that this signs kind of stay with the building. So we want it to kind of blend in and match that a little bit, so that way whoever goes into it has a sign they can use. So we left that as an open item. It's a little bit of an aesthetic part of this, but since the sign is gonna be, stand out quite a bit, we wanted to get some feedback from you guys, see if the petitioner is amendable to maybe doing some kind of a red and tan toned brick instead. And that's it. So that's kind of the only open item that we had on this.
Okay, questions for Dan up to this point?
Is there a reason why the petitioner wants to do the darker brick or stone?
Can ask him. Yeah.
Sir, could you just give us your name and your relationship to the
George
site?
Tragos, owner of Chi-Town Harley Davidson, 17801 South LaGrange Road.
Okay, John.
Is there a reason why you are proposing the darker brick or stone as opposed to the lighter one?
Yes, the building's built in 2001, and the dye in the brick is faded quite a bit. I can't get the same matching bricks, so I won't find any that matches the current color of the building. That's why we're leaning towards stone, because stone complements brick a lot, and currently a lot of architectural firms are using stone, wood, and brick in a lot of designs these days. A lot of the newer dealerships are bringing in a lot of those steel, wood, brick, and stone tones all in one. So if and when, I'm going to admit this today, that I drove by my own building and I was not happy with it. Its exterior facade is faded and it's looking old and fatigued. So this is something I would compliment. Like, I would take the front of the building and maybe stone that whole thing up and start to tie all that in together and give it a more of a facelift. So I have long-term plans for being in the Village of Tinley Park. Everybody's been great. This is one of the few, maybe only, variances I was asking for in the last 19 years of our relationship. So, yeah, I'm okay with a darker, redder stone. You know, I would leave it up to my wife, of course, but I'm colorblind. So I can't match that brick just because of its age and exposure to the sun and the fading it's faced over the last 18, 19 years.
What are your plans? You say you're gonna stone the front of the building.
If I did something in the future trying to upgrade the facade, it's not gonna be anytime soon. I have a parking lot that needs to be done. I have an entire roof full of air conditioners that need to be upgraded, and I have an entire showroom that needs to be upgraded. So we're planning over the next 3 to 5 years investing up to $250,000 into the facility. Aside from the sign, we're also approved by the Harley-Davidson Motor Company to be an EV dealer, so we're an electronic vehicle dealer. Our infrastructure's coming in shortly in the next 30 days, so we'll be coming for permit for that. Not only are we going to be hosting and selling electronic vehicles out of there, we will also have the ability to charge electronic cars as well.
Okay, my point was, though, whenever you do get to the facade of the building, is this darker stone a color choice that's on your palette, or?
It is. I'd like to tie it in with some wood tone, some wood grains, some steel, stone, and brick. I'm going to leave that up to the experts, but it's definitely something we would tie into the rest of the building to help it, it all
not
matched.
today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even if I had to reface that sign, because it'll probably be a veneer, if I had to reface the concrete structure of the sign to match the building, I'm all for that as well.
So are you open to maybe doing something with a red tone in it then? That would
I'd be
kinda
happy to,
our-
yeah, sure. I
that'd
mean,
be
again,
kinda our
I'm happy to do anything that we can agree on to move forward with it. Again, the only problem I have is the readability of the sign. If I do the one per code, they're moving at 55 miles an hour. I got a 3-second right-hand read. And if I want to put up more than 3 words, you're passing my sign. So I need to be able to have it taller and longer so I can put my entire message in one block, static 8 seconds, and they're coming by at 55 miles an hour. So I'll have the same sign up there for 3 sets of passing vehicles before it refreshes itself so I can actually change the message again. So we don't plan on using it for video, but we really want to use the sign for events. More than I need to advertise the motorcycles, because, I mean, we're unique. We talk about car business, the automobile industry, which I'm from. I was one of Joe Riz's head finance managers for 11 years. I've had 2 jobs since I was 22 years old. It was that and Harley. So why we're different is because we're a clothing store instead of a motorcycle dealership with vehicle retail sales and a service department. So I'm mechanical services, I'm vehicle sales, I'm clothing sales, and I'm an event coordinator. So we wear a lot of big hats to do all that. So our goal right now is really just to swing the door. We're not looking to really promote vehicle sales out of that, because we do that either our electronic or our direct mail or our social media content. It's really just to let people know that we have an event coming up this weekend, because we're trying to drive traffic to the store.
I kind of think Dan's idea of a Hardy Cafe would have been a great one.
There was one of those in Rockford, and it is no longer a cafe. The store was originally designed to have a cafe in it and a daycare and a lot of other things, and we've made some changes over through the design side of it. It was actually supposed to be designed like a streetscape, so when you walked in the front door, it was like you were walking down a little street. There's a boot store and then this store, but as I counted the employees I needed to do that got scrapped as well. So we had a lot of great ideas back in 2001.
So what else did you want to present here?
Well, I could go through a lot of things with you. I'm a numbers guy, so I'll spare you the boring details. As you know, Harley-Davidson is an iconic brand in the world. We're one of few companies that have exceeded 100 years in age, along with John Deere and Ford. So Harley has that. I'll call them tattoos. So. My concern right now is with the increase in online sales, especially in the retail area of parts, accessories, and general merchandise, which is the clothing and the houseware side of it. Brick and mortars threatened daily, so that's a big key for me. So you see now a lot of facilities where Kentucky Fried Chicken and Taco Bell are joining in some little tiny postage stamp and sharing the square. I was like, they're smarter than we are, because we've got 100,000 square foot facilities and plants all over the place. So we have to kind of mend with what's going on, learn from the past, do what we're doing currently, and move the future. So I've had dealers expand their facilities, and I'm still in the same size facility. We've survived 2 recessions, 2 major road constructions out there. So it's a compliment for that. But in 2016, I'll give you some historical data real quick. In 2016, my year-over-year vehicle sales were down 17% with an overall revenue decrease in 13.8%. 2017, we were down 3% in vehicle sales, 7.9% in overall revenue sales. And then in 18, we were down 4% in vehicle sales and down 2.5% in revenue. As you can tell, I'm trying to grab the bull by the horns here, because we went from 14 down to 8, and now I'm down to 2.5. So in overall 3-year trend, our vehicle sales are down 24%, with my overall general revenue down 24%. And if you start poking the bear from $20 million down to $15 million with 30% gross profit margin, we're losing $1.5 million in gross profit. What do I do at $1.5 million? I employ people, I expand, I do infrastructure improvements and things of that nature. So I've lost that revenue over the last 3 years, and what we're trying to do is, again, just get people to swing through the door. Hey, we got a car show this weekend. Hey, we've got an event going on where it's bikes and brews. We got a local Tinley brewery coming in to serve some beers, and we're going to have a bike show or something. So we're just trying to make some general some general messages. I mean, we have 15,000 people going down LaGrange Road. When I came here in 2001, I looked at 9 different facilities, 4 of them in Tinley Park, 5 out. And this is the first site I looked at, and it's the first one, and then it was one I bought and built on. So one of the reasons I did that is for LaGrange Road. Now, I had to get through a few fistfights with the motor company because I was moving to the outest edge of my territory. My territory, when I was in Homewood for 5 years, was the center of LaGrange Road. And they said, well, you want to go from where you're at to the edge of your territory? And I said, yeah, I do. And they said, we've never approved that before. I said, well, let's start now. So, I mean, I had to sell that package to get to Tinley Park on LaGrange Road because I knew what the future was going to look like here. And I wanted to be able to use the traffic count is one of the key things. Now, I've waited 18, 19 years to get a sign on my building. I think I'm a pretty nice guy. So, and again, putting the sign out there, I'm able to meet everything as far as the design for the sign is, but my biggest concern is the speed of the vehicles. I love the traffic count, 15,000. The speed of the vehicle is 50 miles an hour plus. It's 7 lanes wide. There's landscape all over the place. I need to be able to put my message up for 8 seconds. So, I mean, we can only put maybe 6, 7, 8 words up at a time. So I can't put 3 words up and wait for it to change 8 seconds. I've already lost probably 40, 50 cars to get that message out there. And we're keeping it low to the ground. And we've got every other side of the signs aspect within code, I believe. So And the only reason I say that is because, I mean, I just can't have a 3x6 sign out there. If you put it out there and walk by the building, it'd be a great postage stamp. But so, and again, we're just trying to get the message up on one LED display, one message of 4x12.
It's two-sided, right?
It'll be two-sided, but unfortunately, the south lanes, as I drove by today, is a little bit landscaped and, you know, people in semis will be able to see it.
The north side's tough, though.
The northbound will be,
The southbound is tough.
yeah, southbound's gonna be tough. And when after we started working on this, probably a year and a half ago, and once they started to finish LaGrange Road, I sat in front of the building, and I'm like, I didn't think of that. So, you know, it's a little difficult, but hopefully we'll, you know, be able to utilize it in some way, shape, or form, as long as they keep that landscape low enough, that'd be great. But again, yeah, we're ready to go on everything, and we agree on everything, heights, size, widths, but I just need a little bit more room to put a one-time 8-second static message up that has more than 3 words in it, because I think we're gonna be like, hey, we have, so.
Okay, any questions?
I have one question, I'm sorry. The height is within where it's supposed to be?
Correct.
Can you go higher, or no? Or is
No,
it right
10,
at where it's at?
10 feet's the max.
I like where she's going.
Well, I mean, honestly, because I drive by there all the time, and half the time, I'm not a Harley girl, but half the time I don't even see your building until I'm halfway gone.
Correct.
So, I like the fact that you're getting a sign, I think it's great. But again, with the traffic going as fast as it is and everything else too, is a low sign gonna be enough? That's, I mean, and I don't mean to poke the bear, I don't wanna make it more difficult for us,
That's okay.
but.
We've talked about it internally as well along LaGrange. There's the restaurant that's changed a few times. It's Jumbo Crab now.
Egg, something.
Bacon Eye, Blue Ear Hill.
Well, and the Jumbo.
I've eaten at
Crab
every one.
So the
Oh,
Jumbo
okay.
Crab sign, I don't know if you can ever even see that, because that's set even further back than their building, and that, they have a sign out there,
Which
but
sign?
you wouldn't know it. It's Hot and Juicy Crab now. It was
Oh, yeah.
Eagle Buffet, Big
Yeah.
Mo Meats. It's been a number of things over the years, but that sign has always been there. But when I went and did an inspection on the building when it changed this last time, I was like, I didn't even know there was a ground sign out here. So we've talked about it internally. Is there some kind of district we can overlay maybe on LaGrange or something that could allow
There's
a little bit more just based
all
on
those
that?
trees they just put in along there, they're gonna grow.
Yeah, if you go back to the photograph of where the sign's installed right there, that's my new front landscaping.
'Cause I'm looking at it as, from a perspective of a business as well, and if you're spending all this money to put in this sign, and in 2 years or 3 years, it's not gonna be beneficial anymore. Is it better to look at it as a whole picture, and the village's part and his, financially and also from a work perspective, and perhaps maybe come to an agreement and make it, have them come for a higher variance, in addition to the electronics.
Yes,
That's
and
just-
that's something, like I
something
said,
I'm
we've
thinking
talked
of.
about. If that's what he'd like to do, we'd want, before you guys voted on something like that, we'd like to see what it looks like. Get it back before you guys draw up the motion, figure out what the actual size is.
But again, it's his cost.
Is the
it's
logo
not-
gonna
it's
be
not ours.
illuminated, or illuminated?
The what?
The logo, the Harley Davidson, is that?
It is
gonna
my
be
goal to
lit up?
have it illuminated, yes.
Okay,
In a soft,
Backlight type thing, not.
yes,
not a-
internally illuminated.
that'll help.
At
Yeah,
night.
it'd be, I mean, you know, we shut our signs off at midnight right now in the building, so I don't think I'm gonna be putting messages out till 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that'll go blank, you'll see a little bar and shield glowing up right there, and that's it. And what she said is phenomenal, but I'm on a double-edged sword here, because I'm gonna have trees that I'm trying to get under and landscape in the island I'm trying to get over, so I don't have this. I wish I could have been part of the landscape committee for this air stretch of road right now, and I would have said, you know, I have a sign going in.
It's gonna look it's gonna be the nicest looking road once that stuff actually.
Yeah,
goes in, but it
I'm all
does make
for it.
It
I
does
think
make
the
some of
trees
it.
can actually go high enough where,
And most of
Yeah,
most
on
of
the south, on the
canopies
northbound
get up-
lane, yeah.
Most of the canopies get up to at least 15 feet on those.
Dan, I have 2 questions for you. If this we're zoned an auto dealership area, would we even be discussing this?
Yes, it would be able to be a little taller, but the message center requirements are still the same. So it
Okay.
would still require a variance, but he'd have a little more height to play with. But the message center situation would still be the same.
And the second question is,
And I guess just for reference on height specifically to that question, is if it was under 3 acres in the auto district, it's still a 10-foot height limit wherever you're at. But then it's 18 feet if you're above 3 acres in size. So 18 feet's the maximum height of a sign that we allow in the village for auto dealer districts. That's probably, we still need to discuss it, but we've talked internally. Like I said, like LaGrange is its own animal. It's wider than 159th is, it's wider than Harlem.
I think in this case, though, I think the trees are going to grow actually above the sign. I think he's gonna be okay with the tree line, because once they grow, yeah, really.
I think it's worse right
If
now.
not, if not, I got a tree saw line.
I'm gonna leave a cooler out in the front here when the landscapers roll by. Plenty of water.
my second question is too, was there any concern, any police concerns about visibility, flashing signs on LaGrange Road? I mean, there's state, county, or Tinley, or?
None, and again, we're not gonna use it as a, wow, wow, wow. It's gonna be readability. It could be a picture of a motorcycle sitting there for a while and say sail on street glides. It could be come to our next event, and this is not something we're trying to distract anybody with. We want people to leisurely drive by and look, see the sign, and read it, and absorb what it has to say. That's really our 1, 2, 3 approach to this thing. We're not looking to, turn 15,000 heads a day because 14,950 of them don't ride motorcycles. So the ones that do, is we're just really trying to capture their attention. Anybody might be interested in motorcycling or interested in our clothing, our service department, or our events. So that's why we really wear a lot of hats at that facility. It'd be different if I just sold motorcycles, and it'd be different if I was just a service center. It'd be different if I was just a clothing store. It'd be different if I was just a restaurant, brewery, or a retailer, but we're all in one building. So yeah, that's why I'm really just using this to really just generate door swings and floor traffic.
And
If
not
we-
every street come to your building,
So-
so.
The static times and then the brightness levels that we have in our code that any LED sign and his will have to meet are kind of a standard one that's been more or less agreed upon by the sign companies, the planners. There's this little conglomerate, and those are the numbers we use that it basically sets a daytime and nighttime brightness level, as well as the static time at 8 seconds has been one of those that it's kind of been proven that it's not distracting, the brightness level and the motion. So we use kind of that, unlike corner side yard fences, we have been able to figure out in terms of LED message centers what's right. Does everyone play by those rules? No, because you can go turn up the brightness at any time. You can go put on a full motion display because they have that capability. But we kind of roll off complaints. If it is distracting and someone says this sign's bright, we have the ability to go read the brightness levels.
See, I don't see it being red when you're parked at the stoplight on 179th going northbound. It's too far away to be red while you're sitting. And that's when I find these signs to be helpful, is when I'm sitting on the train and looking over at 107, Oak Park Avenue, and like, oh, here's what's going on in the village. This one's a tough sell.
Yeah, it is a little bit further away.
Well, we started this when we were midway through construction on LaGrange Road, and then when the results came out, I was like, I got my hands full with this. How am I gonna navigate this? I mean, it got wider, the speeds increased, the landscaping came up, and I'm just like, I was like, I don't even wanna sign anymore. I mean, I don't know what to do with it, so, but I still gotta get my message out there. And in off-peak times, you see an American flag on it right now, that might be waving at 2:00 in the morning. Very dim. It could be, drive safe, have a nice day, happy 4th of July, employee of the month, it could be things of that nature. We're not just really ramping this thing all around retail 24 hours a day. It's really during peak travel times and while we're open for business.
Anybody got any more questions for George? No? Okay. Dan, you got standards?
Yeah, I abstained. So the first one's that the property in question can't yield a reasonable return if it complied with the code. The property, again, can yield a reasonable return without the variation, but the applicant is allowed to have one freestanding sign on the site at a maximum of 120 square feet. And it is permitted to have an LED message center. So if it was constructed purely in compliance with that code, it wouldn't be legible from the adjacent roadway due to the right-of-way width and the high travel speeds. So the larger sign creates a safer situation there and more readable message center. The second one is that the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The business is one of the only automotive dealerships in a B3 zoning district. Additionally, LaGrange Road right-of-way is one of the widest in the village at over 120 square feet with an elevated landscape median that decreases visibility to a sign. So the proposed sign frames and the electronic message center as part of the sign design make the identification of the business a priority over the electronic message center. And third is that the variation, if granted, won't alter the essential location of the locality. The property is located on a heavily traveled commercial corridor at a near a signalized intersection. There's residential property to the east, but they won't have visibility to the sign. It'll be shielded from those properties by the building.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for anybody else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing so we can move forward.
Move. Second.
Okay, all those in favor of closing the hearing signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we're up to the point now of discussion. Is there anything to discuss? Covered this pretty good, haven't we? Done pretty well. So if you have questions, let's do them, and if not, who wants to make a motion?
I have a statement I would like to make.
Let's make it.
I don't think we should be considering the adjacent property to the east, the adjacent vacant lot, as part of a potential sign issue that we're dealing with today. I think we should have to deal with this on its face for what we're doing. When they come in the planning for the adjacent lot, that they have to make variations, or it's 5 years, or 10 years, or 6 years, or 6 weeks, that has to be addressed separately, and should not be a factor in our voting today. The other thing is, that configuration of 179th and LaGrange is crazy with the left lanes and turn lanes and everything else. And I go there several times a day because I live down the street. And I like the idea. I understand where you're coming from. I don't disagree. You have to sell motorcycles and sell supplies and sell people and clothing and everything. My concern is that motorcycles and the amount of them coming in and out of there for services and other things is significant. And I don't know that I want to add another driver distraction to the one who's holding the phone and talking and also looking at the sign, and there's a motorcycle coming out of the driveway there onto LaGrange or something, or onto 179. It's a concern, the distraction of the sign with the motorcycles and the traffic volume there and the speed on LaGrange is my concern. I'm not saying I don't like the idea, I'm not saying I won't approve the idea, I'm just simply saying it's a concern and it should be looked at significantly, and if there's an increase in issues, I don't know.
I can tell that about 60–70% of our traffic moves through 179th Street rather than LaGrange Road, because we only have one ingress, egress there. And the majority of our traffic actually comes in from 179th Street. And our second driveway empties off into the restaurant, which they have the option to go to the back of the property out to 179th. They can have the right to go behind the Arby's out to 179th Street. So there is, I totally
There's
appreciate that
alternatives.
concern, but there's not a lot of bikes that go out onto LaGrange Road that way. A majority of it goes on 179th Street, and I even go on 179th Street, and I go wait for the light so I can blend in with traffic that way. I don't go out on my bike straight out on the LaGrange Road, because speed limit might be 50, we know that, but it's a great wide open corridor with a lot of least amount of intersections, so I know the rate of speed there is pretty high.
And
we
lane
appreciate
changes,
that.
tons of lane changes.
Yeah, so I mean, we try to push everybody out on 179th.
And those, with any electronic message center, that was the first hurdle, and it's still the hurdle today, is safety with those, because it adds another screen to somebody who's got a screen in front of them on the car, a screen unfortunately in their hand, and then another screen there. The standards that we did kind of implement for the static time and the brightness I can't quote the research, but there's some research behind that in terms of it limits the amount of distractions. It shouldn't cause any further distraction than if it was just a solid sign. So if the signs follow the rules, they shouldn't cause any more. So that's why we use those standards, is there is some research behind those numbers.
Okay. Are we ready for a motion? And who would like to make that motion?
Come
He
on,
likes
Bob.
to read.
He's good at it.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner George Targus on behalf of Chi-Town Harley Davidson a 24.1 square foot variation from section 9J4 sign regulations for electronic message centers of the zoning ordinance. The variation will permit a 48 square foot LED message center display to be 40.1% of the freestanding sign surface area instead of the permitted maximum of 20%. On the property located at 17801 South LaGrange Road in the B3 PD General Business Commercial Chi-Town Harley Davidson PUD zoning district, consistent with the list of submitted plans as attached herein, and adopt findings of fact as proposed by village staff and as may be amended by the zoning board of appeals at this meeting.
Under following conditions, perhaps we should include something about strong consideration towards a stone facing more in sync with the building itself.
Yes, we would recommend that being a condition, not just strongly preferred, but using some kind of tan and red tone stone that'll tie in with the colors of the building, but allowing them to use a more modern stone.
So there we
That's
go.
what we would recommend.
All right.
Yes.
Anything else? Anybody want to add anything else into this? No? Then we'll look for a second on the motion.
Second.
Does-
Seconded.
So, just to clear, does that include that? Do you
Yes.
guys want to
So
include
do you
that?
amend your motion? Yes, that's the-
Oh,
You can just say to add that as a condition, but
Yeah.
to add staff's recommendation.
To add the condition as recommended by Chairman Sepisi of stone color.
now a second.
Second.
Okay. You got all that? All right, can we do a vote, please?
Vargas,
Yes.
Bettenhausen,
Yay.
Shuck,
Yes.
Paschek,
Yes.
Chairman Sepisi.
Yes. Okay, you carried.
Great.
You carried unanimously. That means
Appreciate
that you go through one village board meeting to get this approved. That'll be August 6th, 7 PM, right here. We won't be here, you will. And what they'll do is they will read, discuss, and vote on your motion at that time. And so it beats, usually it's 2 or 3 meetings, but because it's a unanimous vote, they're gonna speed it through. And you should be good to go.
Great, I appreciate all your help tonight, thank you all.
That's all right. Thank
Have
you
a
for
good
coming.
evening.
Have a
Thank you.
Good evening.
Sorry for keeping you so late.
What do you got for us, Dan? You always got something.
Heck, a little something. Commissioner Gaskell was moved from Plan Commission, or from ZBA to Plan Commission on the last appointment. So, right now he's resigned from ZBA and he'll be at the Plan Commission. They'll be appointing someone else shortly, I think, for ZBA, so, for you guys. The North Street work's still moving along, so they're moving kind of the second stage of that. But in terms of the street that's gonna be by the new plaza, the crosswalks, the utilities and everything like that. So they're about halfway done there and they've moved through that. Downtown development's still chugging along. Some of it's a little bit delayed, but it's all still moving one way or another, either through permit process or, SIP as well as the animal hospital are moving along, so. July 25th is your guys' next ZBA meeting. I believe that's canceled, right? So that'll be canceled, so we'll see you guys in August. August 8th is the next meeting. That's it.
When is block party?
It's-
21st,
Yeah, it's coming up
21st.
here shortly.
I said, I haven't seen advertisement one for it yet, and I was beginning
I
to.
saw it on Facebook, but
Hmm?
We have it over by us.
Do you?
In Brookside Glen, there's a sign up by the fire station.
Hmm.
yeah, I know it's on the website, so if you look on the current events on the village
And I
website,
had
I
a
know it's on
resident
there. It's coming up in
complaint.
the next couple weeks. It's-
I had a resident complaint, I'm not gonna tell you who it was. It wasn't me. They wanna know what's going on the old central property, because that was the parking place chosen by hundreds for the car shows. And now they're digging it up. Is there something being built there? I just thought it was just storage for the equipment and
Yeah, there's
supplies.
nothing right
for the
now. I
square.
think some of it's the utilities for the plaza and
That's
stuff.
what I
So I
thought,
think
too.
some of it runs through there.
And I went so far as to say that.
That will be part of a project that's coming forward sooner, that it'll be part of the bigger North Street project, but that hasn't even gone to any public hearings or anything yet at this point.
Good, I'm safe then.
So I think it's just utilities now, but that will eventually not be a parking lot, hopefully. It'll be a nice development with a parking lot in it, but it'll be something a little more than a vacant
I reckon
school
so.
site, so.
All right. Does anybody else have anything good of the order related or news announcements? Do you had something, Tom, or
No,
was that
just
just,
give me a
oh,
thumbs
you wanna
up.
get out of here,
Good
okay.
job.
So in that case, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Come on, somebody.
Second.
Okay.
This
All
is
those in
hard.
favor of adjourning this evening's meeting signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Barb, did you want these for the minutes for his?
Yeah, I actually saved a copy of that stuff too,
Yep, there you go.
for you, Barb.
I got a copy